Apple just released watchOS 27 Beta 1, and although it didn't get much attention at WWDC, there are more than 30 new features and changes in this update. So in this video, we're going to walk through the new app grid, some new gestures, some changes to Liquid Glass, and more. Okay, so let's start with the slightly refined Liquid Glass UI. So there's better readability throughout watchOS 27 now, so you'll notice this when you're in applications, when you're in the control center here. You'll just notice, especially on the notification bubbles as well. So if you go down to the notification bubbles, they do look a bit better, more like Liquid Glass than what we saw on watchOS 26. I also noticed a small difference here in the control center. When you go to edit, you'll notice that there's a slightly more exaggerated animation there, and also the icons do not jiggle, at least not in beta 1. And while we're looking at these notifications, I want to show you something else new here in watchOS 27. And if you go into a notification, there's a difference here at the bottom. So take a look at that. So before, if we went into a notification, you'll see down at the bottom, we basically just had a dismiss button down there. And if you wanted to mute a notification, you'd have to kind of swipe over on it. But now in watchOS 27, we have an X in the bottom left-hand corner, and we have a new mute icon, a new way to mute or silence notifications in the bottom right. And if you tap on that, that will give you the same options we've seen before, but just in a new way, because before you'd have to tap on these three dots and then you had the option to mute or turn off. But now you can see for these notifications, we can mute for an hour, add to summary, turn on time sensitive, or turn off. So just a new way to access that section there, and it looks a good bit better down there at the bottom. And I had to take a screenshot of this one, but also the Apple Pay notifications look different on watchOS 27. So we have these bubbles that are separated. It's a lot more rich now, so it shows, everything bigger. It shows the eligible for daily cash and the map at the bottom. It just looks different than watchOS 26. Okay, so now we need to talk about something you're going to notice right away after installing watchOS 27, and it might throw you off the first few times you see it. But if you press in on the digital crown, we have what's called the dynamic app grid. So this is going to show and rearrange 5 applications based on context and usage. So if you've used it recently, or if it's an application you use a lot, it will most likely show up here in this grid. And if you want to get to your regular screen that you're used to, where you see all your applications, you can swipe down like that. You can move the digital crown down like that, or you could press on this button down here in the bottom middle that will take you to your regular app grid. And keep in mind, there is no app switcher, at least not as of the first beta. So when you double press right here on the digital crown, before in watchOS 26, if you were to do that, so if we go here to watchOS 26, we double click on the crown, of course that will take you into the app switcher where you can see your different applications that you had open. But now in watchOS 27, that does not exist, at least not in the very first beta. So we have this dynamic app grid, and that's going to be where you're basically going to be able to easily go into the applications that you frequent. And I think the best thing about this is that it is based on context. So if you're like working out, the fitness is always going to be up there. I've noticed that when you're like traveling or Ubering, you'll see things like your messages and your Find My, just applications you frequently use, those will show up here. So it does seem to be a bit useful. It just will take some time to get used to. And by the way, the app switcher is not the only thing that's missing here in watchOS 27, because if you scroll down, you'll notice that the Walkie Talkie is also missing. So it's also not here in the control center. So I know some people loved that Walkie Talkie. Was very slept on. A lot of people didn't really use it, didn't really know it was there. But if you are somebody who used the Walkie Talkie application, unfortunately, that has been removed. Okay, so let's talk about the Smart Stack. So the Smart Stack has also been improved here with watchOS 27. So it now has new suggestions, so new suggestion types that will populate here inside of your Smart Stack. So you'll see things like your close contacts birthday. It will show their birthday right there if they are a close contact of yours. You'll see your location of your parked car. You'll be able to change your sleep alarm before holidays, and you can pin your transit card to see your balance at a glance. So all of those are new suggestions that you will see in the Smart Stack over time as you use your device on watchOS 27. And while we're in the Smart Stack section, this is a great place to show you the brand new gesture that was just introduced with watchOS 27. So before, we had the double tap gesture, which would allow you to kind of scroll through your Smart Stack and throughout other areas of watchOS. But now with watchOS 27, we have a brand new single tap gesture to select things. So if I wanted to select indoor workout, like an indoor walk, for example, I just do a single tap like that, where my index finger and my thumb touch together, just like you do with a double tap, you're just doing a single tap. So that is a brand new one here in watchOS 27. There is also a setting for that. So we head into, if we go back to our dynamic app grid here and go into our settings and go into gestures, right here under gestures, you'll see that we have tap gestures. And when you have that turned on, you could also choose what it does for playback. So if you want it to play or pause or skip, you can do that. And there's also an option to ignore tap gestures when using Apple Vision Pro. So this is also something you can use with playback in music. So a single tap would skip, or if you want to change that to play pause, you can do that right there. And then also in these settings, of course, we do have our wrist flick. We have our cover to mute as well. So before, you'll notice that it just said double tap. So if we go ahead into watchOS 26 right here under gestures, you can see that before it did not say tap gestures, it just said double tap because that was the only gesture that existed. So it did have these same settings as before, but you can see now it's just slightly tweaked. Okay, so since we were just doing a workout, we may as well talk about workouts as well, because Workout Buddy has seen some improvements here with watchOS 27. And I was one of the minorities who thought that Workout Buddy was actually cool in watchOS 26. I actually really found it to be useful. It gave me good insights, and now it's getting even better, along with a really big bug fix, which we'll talk about in a moment here in watchOS 27. So first off, Workout Buddy has improved with new insights from workouts, including progress for pace, distance, and workout duration. So now it's going to have access to those and give you more insights on those specific, workouts, those specific insights from your workouts. Now, also, I have to say, Workout Buddy is much better in 27 because it not only has a new voice, but it's not as alarming and loud when it comes on. So this might be a niche use case, but for me, I work out several times a week, and every single time Workout Buddy would come on, it would startle me, especially in the car, because it was so loud and jarring right away. So now it's been toned down quite a bit, and the voice is a lot easier to listen to. And also the way that Workout Buddy speaks to you now is just slightly different. So it said something recently, and I put this in quotes, I had to write it down, because it said, on top of your Saturday workout, you closed your move ring. So it kind of combines multiple things into one, and just overall gives you more insights, I've noticed, than what it did in watchOS 26. So if you found the Workout Buddy to be kind of useless before, try it out again here in watchOS 27. It is definitely better. But perhaps the best thing about the Workout Buddy in watchOS 27 is that it now no longer requires a phone to be nearby. So even if you had a cellular watch before, if you had no signal and things like that, your Workout Buddy would just not work. So you needed to have a phone nearby, but not anymore with watchOS 27, and now works even if your phone is not near you. Also, Workout Buddy now supports Spanish. So before it was in English only, now it's English and Spanish. Now, if you're somebody who has a step goal, if you'd like to get 10,000 or 20,000 steps a day, you'll be pleased to know that step counts in the fitness app now syncs up properly with the steps that are counted in the health application. So if you've paid attention to this over time, you would know that there is a discrepancy between the fitness app and the health app, specifically with step counts. But now that's been updated and they sync properly, so it will show the same in fitness and health. Apple also says that step tracking in general is now more accurate in watchOS 27 than it was in watchOS 26, which I noticed in 26 and also in watchOS 18 that I would get a lot more steps than I actually took. So hopefully this doesn't inflate the number of steps you're actually taking. Now I need to go back to workouts because there is one thing I forgot to mention here, and that is that now workouts will start faster in watchOS 27. So for some reason there would always be a slight delay when you would start a workout. I would kind of need to initialize things, but now it's nearly instant. So I have noticed a improvement here to starting workouts a bit faster. And I should also mention that the fitness application on the iPhone on iOS 27 has also been improved. So I did mention this in my iOS 27 What's New video, but if you go into a workout that you previously completed, you can see that the UI here looks so much better than what it looked like on iOS and watchOS 26. So we now have this full kind of map view at the top. Our heading right here for what the workout was is much larger and bolder. We have our big calorie number right there, so the number of calories that we burned, along with the date, what was used to track this, so the Apple Watch, and it shows all your other details down here. So it doesn't really show any new information. It's just laid out in a much better, much cleaner, kind of more modern way than what we saw on 26. There's also an update to cycle tracking in the health application on iOS and watchOS 27, and that is the fact that it now supports perimenopause and menopause. Okay, so we know the new Siri on iOS 27 is amazing, but it's also going to be coming to the Apple Watch. So yes, Siri AI, the brand new, chatbot version of Siri, is going to be coming to the Apple Watch with watchOS 27, and it should show up right here in the center of the dynamic app grid right here. So that'll be pretty cool. And what's great about this is that you can start on the iPhone. So you can start like something with Siri on your iPhone, and you can kind of pick up where you left off on your watch. So if you need to put your phone in your pocket or something like that, you can continue the conversation and continue whatever you were doing on your phone right here on your wrist. But it's not just for picking up. You could also start a conversation straight from your wrist or through a new Smart Stack suggestion. So if you go into your Smart Stacks right here, you will see a suggestion for Siri eventually once it does come to the Apple Watch, which will be in watchOS 27. It's just not there just yet in the first beta. And something else that's coming when the new Siri AI comes to the Apple Watch is call context while you're on a phone call. So I showed this in my iOS 27 video, but essentially if it's somebody's birthday, it will show you on your watch that's their birthday while you're on the phone with them. There's a new animation. And also a more practical, useful example is when you call an airline, it will search through your mail and bring up your confirmation number and things like that in a little menu, a little dialog box. That way you don't have to go out of the phone application to see the information that's needed. Okay, so there's also a big improvement to Find My with watchOS 27. And I have watchOS 26 here just to show you how much of a disaster it really was on the watch before watchOS 27. So before, we had separate applications for Find People, Find Devices, and Find Items. There were 3 Find My applications on the Apple Watch, and it was just it was really hard to know where to go. And I just basically never used it because it was so cumbersome. But you had the Find People right there, which would show you location of people. You had the Find Items, and you had the Find Devices. Well, now in watchOS 27, if we go into our applications here, you'll notice that we just have one application, just like on the iPhone, with a new icon there. It's not a new icon overall, but it's new for the Apple Watch, and that is for Find My. So if you go into that, it's going to show you everything in one application, as it should have been from the start. So if you go ahead and tap up here in the upper left-hand corner, that's where you can change between people, devices, and items instead of having separate full-on applications on your Apple Watch. You'll also notice a big difference in the UI. So it now looks a lot more like the iPhone in watchOS 27. Take a look at watchOS 26 over here on the right. It just kind of showed it in this little menu right here. So it's much more immersive. It just looks overall way better in watchOS 27. And if we tap on that item, you'll see what it looks like there. And then if I do that in watchOS 27, it shows all the information, including the address, play sound, the big buttons right there. Whereas before it kind of was like this. It just showed play sound, directions down at the bottom. So you can see there are also new glyph icons there as well. So new buttons, the color is different in the background, the glyphs are different. And if you scroll down to lost mode, you can see how that looks different as well. So yeah, just a lot of things have changed here in watchOS 27 with the Find My application. Just a big overhaul in general. Now, if you're like me, you probably play music all the time from your Apple Watch, especially if you are working out. And I noticed that with watchOS 27, music playback starts faster. And Apple actually said this themselves, but I had to test it for myself. And yes, music absolutely starts faster. Sometimes it would hang and just give you that kind of waiting, that loading bar right there. But now music playback starts much faster, specifically from Apple Music. And you might also notice when looking around that we do have updated app icons for Maps and Music, and maybe some others have some slight changes as well. But you can see more liquid glass. Really, it's noticeable the most in the Maps application. So if you go to Maps right there, you can see the little liquid glass circle around it, just like what we see on the iPhone, but you will see those app icons updated in watchOS as well. So one of my favorite features in iOS 27 is the fact that we can now create a pass using a QR code. So if you have something like a ticket for a concert, a membership like for Costco or a gym, you can now add that to your Apple Wallet, even if it's not supported natively. And the best thing is, those will also show up on your Apple Watch. So if you create a pass, you'll be able to use that created pass on your Apple Watch as well. Apple also mentions that battery optimizations will now be suggested throughout watchOS 27. So they didn't specify whether that's going to be inside of the Smart Stack, but I would assume they're talking about it being somewhere inside of settings. So that you should see some battery optimization kind of notifications, kind of like what we've seen on iOS for a while, showing you how you can save battery. And Apple did also mention better optimization overall as well. So they said a few things that are going to be improved here with watchOS 27, kind of along the same lines as what we've seen with iOS 27, macOS 27, and so forth. This is going to be one of the more stable, more reliable builds because Apple is really focusing on performance and optimization. So they said things like this: better battery efficiency in watchOS 27, improved Wi-Fi connectivity, more efficient water detection, more accurate step tracking, faster media playback, which I mentioned before, and faster app extension launches. So all those things should be improved here with watchOS 27 to overall just make your watch feel faster and smoother than what it did beforehand. Now, unfortunately, the Apple Watch Ultra first generation is not supported with watchOS 27, which is kind of a disappointment, especially if you are somebody with that device now and you just didn't upgrade for a while. So that's unfortunate. So the only ones supported with watchOS 27 are going to be the Apple Watch SE 3, the Apple Watch Series 9, and the Apple Watch Ultra 2 and later. And once again, we should see those new Siri AI features come out in the near future. And I will make an update video, of course, when those features do get finally added to watchOS 27. But anyways, guys, there you have it. Those are the new features and changes found in watchOS 27 Beta 1. So the beta, of course, will continue to improve upon these features and changes, and we will see more as well. And once this does become final in September, I will make a full what's new video showing you everything new in the watch, from here until then. So anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, let me know with a comment down below, and I will see you very soon.